and welcome. I'm so excited today to have a wonderful returning guest whom I know many of you will be familiar with, and that is the wonderful Deborah Morehead. Welcome, Deborah.
Thank you, Michelle, so much. I'm so excited to be here and to be being a part of this, and I love that you do this and bring all this great information to all these women, and that I get to be a part of it. So thank you.
Well, thank you so much for coming back. Deborah is just a wonderful, wonderful a wealth of wisdom, and I'm excited for you to be able to hear what she has to say today. We're going to be talking about 3 mistakes women make that keep them from their Mr. Right. That's our theme. Before we dive into that really hot topic, though, Deborah, for those who may not be as familiar with you, I'll just share a brief introduction. Imagine having the life and relationship you've always desired. After being stood up on her 30th birthday by her drug-addicted boyfriend, kills me every time I read that, Deborah.
I know.
Deborah was determined to figure out this relationship stuff, and she did. Along with her 23 years experience as a therapist, her #1 best-selling book, Conscious Love, Enlightened Relationships and Soulful Sex, and her effective happiness freedom formula, she can help you have the power to create your own happy, amazing relationship. And I know so many of the women that are here, Deborah, that's exactly what they want.
Yes, absolutely. And it is very possible. It's very possible. So.
Right. I would say you and I are living, breathing evidence that it's possible.
Yes.
So just to start out, Deborah, I know we're going to talk about 3 specific mistakes that women make, but do you believe that a lot of times we do get in our own way from finding the right relationship? And if so, tell us a little more about that.
Yes. Yeah, we really do. And one of the things that I talk about, I mean, there's so many different ways that we can get in our own ways. I mean, I am a marriage family therapist. I've been doing individual couples, work for, it's actually been 25 years now. So I have to update that. But there are so many different ways that, I know that our unconscious patterns from our limiting beliefs and our unconscious patterns from our childhood always weave their way in to how we are and who we choose and all of that kind of stuff. So those are the more subconscious, grander ways that I definitely help people to understand, why we choose who we choose, why we then recreate the familiar patterns from what we experienced from our childhood, why we do that and find ourselves in the same situation. I actually been working with a woman recently who she came to me because she really wanted to work on her relationship with her husband. She was feeling very, very like there was some straws that broke the camel's back, but she didn't want a divorce. And we were, after doing I do a pretty thorough assessment and really recognizing that her core need really was around feeling a sense of significance. Really, it was the word feeling supported was her word. And lo and behold, her marriage, what has happened, right? She feels very unsupported by her husband. And that's the kind of stuff that we do time and time again when we are playing from an unconscious way that we go about it. So we definitely get in our own way. And the biggest thing, and I always talk about this, the biggest way that we also get in our own way is at the very beginning when we're starting to date. We really don't want to feel rejection, right? That fear of rejection or that fear of, but if they don't like me. And so we, right at the very beginning, start to give up ourselves, give up what we like to do, give up our friends, give up our time, all of those kind of things out of fear of rejection. And that is like the opposite thing to do when you're first dating, because it will always end in the worst direction. So those are my couple of thoughts about, yeah, we get in our own way when we are trying to find and be in and have a great relationship.
So this last piece that you mentioned about how we start kind of losing ourselves or collapsing boundaries or overgiving or focusing all of our time, attention on someone that's relatively new in our life and letting other things go by the wayside.
Yeah.
That, I think, is probably a very common thing for a lot of women, especially if they haven't been in a relationship for a long time, or they're feeling insecure, or they're feeling like on some level they're not enough. They feel like they have to kind of be proving that they're enough, or proving that worthiness. And I'm sure some of that can stem back to some childhood wounds or patterns or things like that.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. That's one of the things when I'm working, oftentimes when I work with women, either thinking about getting a divorce, or there's just been an affair, or, they're just unhappy in their relationship, not in love the way they were before. That's actually one of the first questions that I always ask them, is like, well, who were you? What did you do? What were your interests? Who were your friends before you were in this relationship? Because it triggers them to remember all of that, because they had slowly just given up all of that in their marriage and in their life. So yeah.
Yeah, I love that. I love that question. That's a very, very important question, and could even be relevant for women that are like immersed in a dating relationship that they're feeling frustrated with. It wouldn't necessarily only apply to women who are in a long-term relationship or marriage, right?
Yes, absolutely, Michelle. That's exactly right. So it's anywhere along the line. I mean, it's interesting that when I am working with women at the other end, that's one of the things. But exactly like what you said, when I work with a woman at the beginning end, it's like, okay, what were your commitments that you used to do every week? What were the interests that you did? Let's keep those going. Again, it really does come down. So I'll share a little thing about the kind of the rejection. Research recently has shown that the area in our brain that lights up when we think we're going to be stabbed is the same area that lights up when we think we think we're going to be rejected.
Wow.
Yeah, so it's a very primal, it's a very survival. I can't be rejected. I need to be part of a tribe. I need to be, and then it translates in dating. I need to be liked. He needs to like me. I don't want him to, reject me or stop seeing me. And then we start to change and give up who we are.
Right. So is this pattern one of the 3 mistakes you wanted to tell us about, or do you have 3 more?
So it folds in to one of the 3. Absolutely.
Okay.
So the 3 mistakes are that. Yeah, it actually beautifully folds in. It kind of, as I think about it, all 3 of them. So the first one really is that you don't know yourself that well. So, and there's, well, I'll just go through the 3. So you don't know yourself. There are things I was just talking about. It's really, really important to know yourself so that when you start dating, you solidly hold that, because it's very easy to stop that. The second mistake is you do not speak up. You do not assert yourself. And the third one is you do lose yourself. Basically, you give yourself up in the relationship. So I guess in some ways, all 3 of them fit in with that fear of rejection and why we end up doing what we do and make that mistake. So those are the 3 mistakes. I can talk a little bit more about each one, but they really all fit into that. That what I was just saying is we just.
And this is so important too, Deborah, because I know it's a fear for a lot of women that they will lose themselves in a relationship. I mean, I know in my work with my clients, that's something that comes up quite frequently, that there's a conscious or an unconscious fear of them losing themselves, their identity, or their ability to have freedom to navigate the world in the way they want to, especially for women that maybe have worked really hard to have a lot of independence and to have a lot of self-sufficiency and that sort of thing. So on one hand, they're longing for partnership and connection, but on the other hand, they definitely don't want to give up who they are. And so all of this kind of all ties together. But let's take these one by one. Let's start with the one where you really don't know yourself, because this is another one that really, really resonates with me. In fact, it's interesting because one of the first places I start with my clients is taking them through an exercise that helps them to really discover what some of their deepest love wants and needs really are, and bring those more visibly to the surface. Because most women have done this thing where they've made a list mentally or on paper in terms of qualities or characteristics they want in a partner, but sometimes a neglected piece is them not really knowing, like you're talking about, who they are and what was really that important to them. So anyway, I didn't mean to hijack the conversation, but say what.
We're exactly on the same page with that. So, and I love that you do an exercise like that, because that's part of what I absolutely do. So really it goes back to what I was saying at the beginning, right, is we all have, so there's two different areas. The first, in making sure you know yourself, at least that I see, is know those core needs. Know there are those subconscious things that came out of our childhood, and you need to know those, and you need to know how to get those needs met, you know, within yourself and with all the different people in your life. So that way, when you are in start dating or start to get into a committed relationship, you know how to say, oh, ouch, that was a trigger from one of my owies from my childhood, right? And, you know, this is what I just need to share this with you. And this is what I'm needing from you, or this is what would be really helpful for me. So being able to know what those are. So know those unconscious core needs so that you can speak to them. And then the other one, and it sounds like you do a beautiful job with that exercise, but I definitely do something with women around like the non-negotiables, what really are your, and it's a much deeper, right, than just like that list, you know, that long list of he has to, you know, be tall and dark and handsome or whatever. It's really is what are your beliefs, what are your values, what's your lifestyle, kind of looking at all of those, know what those are so that you can quickly determine if this man that you're dating is really a fit within a short amount of time, because we don't need to waste a lot of time.
Right.
So yes, those are the things that I talk about that's really important to know yourself.
Yeah, and that piece about knowing non-negotiables and your deal breakers, your absolute deal breakers, maybe they're kind of one and the same, but on kind of opposite ends of the spectrum, so to speak. I think that is incredibly valuable, and that's a really important piece of the work that I do with my clients too, because like you're talking about, if people don't understand or know that, then they can fall into that trap of spending too much time or investing too much time, only to find that, wow, this really is more important to me than I really realized, kind of thing, somewhere down the road. And then they may have invested weeks or months into the wrong, or even years, into the wrong relationship.
Absolutely. And, you know, that's also the thing, knowing your non-negotiables, you know, and the deal breakers is so important. Just like what you're saying, we both totally are on the same page with this, because and this gets to that not losing yourself, but how many times have you known a woman that's like, I really want to have kids, or I don't want to have kids, or I really want this or that. And yet they get into a relationship, they don't want to be rejected, they let themselves fall in love, right? And then they are willing to give those things up, but it comes back in not some very positive ways within the relationship. So you've got to know those non-negotiables and deal breakers. So I agree with that.
Yeah, that's wonderful. So then your second one was you don't speak, you don't speak, you don't
Yeah.
say what's important to you. Tell us more about that.
Yeah, so it's not 100%, but we certainly know there's a few different things, right? I mean, certainly culturally, many women, though not all, are not taught to really speak up, or it was not role modeled to them by their mother or primary caregiver to really speak up and say what you ask for, what you need or want. I can't tell you the number of women who are in the relationship, and I think you can relate to this, we all can relate to it, right? And they get to the place where it's like, well, if he really cared about me, he would know to do this or know not to do this or whatever, that kind of language. And that's such unhelpful way to think about things. It's setting you up, it's setting your relationship up, it's setting your man up to fail, because we don't read each other's minds, first of all.
Mm-hmm.
And it is our job to clarify our expectations. And how many times are we on the other side where we didn't clarify our expectations, and then we're mad, and we get mad or upset or frustrated at the other person, but that the other person didn't even have a clue. So it really becomes important to know what it is that you are needing and wanting, and to be able to speak up for that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and this ties back to our previous one, because in order to speak what you want, you have to know what you want, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. So why do you think it's so common, Deborah, for women not to speak? Is it fear? Is it that they're disconnected from what they want or need? What do you think is the most common challenge or challenges?
So I think part is what I talked about. It wasn't really role modeled. The
Yeah.
other is, part of the woman's brain, right, is we have more oxytocin, which is that cuddle hormone. Our brains work, Alison Armstrong calls it like a spaghetti, right, or a spider web. Everything connects to everything. And I think that if we want connection, we want to make sure everybody is okay, we want to make sure everybody is connected. And so it's and then again, I think culturally we just learn to say, put our own needs to the side. We have that nurturing part of us or whatever else, and we want the connection, and so we just put our own needs to the side. But we know that can be move all the way into that people pleasing, and it leads to resentment. It leads to problems in the relationship. Whereas when you clarify your expectations and you speak up and you ask for what you need or want, and you have to remember, I'm going to say this, a little caveat is, just because you ask for what you need and want doesn't mean the other person can or has to do it. We don't demand. It's not okay to demand. It's a request. But the way that we request it, right, which is a really nice, clean I statement where we're being vulnerable and sharing our feelings, and then we're asking for what we need or what would be helpful. Sometimes the person who loves us is able to do it, and sometimes they're only partially able to do it, and sometimes just because they're in their own space or their own stuff is going on, they may not be able to do it. And that doesn't mean it's a bad relationship. That doesn't mean it's a bad person. Now, if they never do your requests, then that's a whole different story. Right. But we have to remember that too, especially because when you're first starting to practice the speaking up and asking for what you need, it's scary for us. And if the person says no, it can cause bigger feelings. But you just have to keep that in mind too. We got to ask.
Yeah, in interviewing so many men over the years, one of the things that has definitely come through, just to back you up on this, is so many of the men have said, we're not mind readers. Even if we want to please you, we're not mind readers. And then another of the men I interviewed said, men don't speak hint, H-I-N-T, hint.
No, no.
And
Yeah.
that's sometimes something that we as women do. I mean, I can walk past the garbage can and say, oh, honey, this garbage can reeks. My husband does not hear, honey, will you take out the garbage can? Because it
Exactly.
smells bad.
Yes.
So, yeah, so it does what you said earlier, being able to learn this skill of asking in a way where it's clear
Yes.
and is sharing maybe why it's important to us. If I say to my husband, honey, will you take out this garbage can because it really smells bad to me and it's bothering me?
Yeah.
He's going to hear that differently than if I say, ooh, this garbage can reeks.
Yep, exactly. Yeah, and men are literal, so you got to ask for exactly what you want. You know, if you said that to a woman, you know, she'd go, "Oh, you know, I'm so sorry. Okay, yeah, let's tie it up. Let's move it out." Right? But if if you say, "Oh, that stinks," to a man, he's like, "Oh, yeah, you're right," and then they're gonna go on and do whatever he was focused on doing. So you ask.
Exactly.
Absolutely.
Kind of funny.
Yeah.
Okay, and so then, huh?
Just the differences in our brains and who we are as men and women.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. So number 3, you want to talk a little bit more about number 3?
Yeah. So in my mind, number 3 is almost number 1. So sometimes I reverse these because number 1 really is that not losing yourself, right? And I think, Michelle, it's everything that you do when you work with the women you work with, and me, I do as well. It gets back to that question that I talked about. Well, what were you, what were you like before? Who did you hang out with? What did you do? I think that, and it depends. Some women kind of lose it in the relationship. Other women may not have had it, and that's why they compromise and settle in the relationship. But it's that I love and value myself first.
Mm-hmm.
That becomes so important. My life, my friends, my interests, those are all part of what make me who I am. And in fact, it's part of what makes a man fall in love with us in the first place, right? Because
Right.
before there's the commitment or the relationship, or there's just this, wow, look at her, she's doing this, or she's this way, or she's right. There's that wonderful attraction to this amazing woman, right? And so you want to make sure that you hold that I love myself, I value myself, I value I know those things that fill me up, right? I know, like for me, my closest relationship is with my sister. We live in different states, but every Sunday, I get filled up. She and I get filled up when we have our video chat every Sunday. It's really, really important for us to have that. And what are the things that I hold dear? What are the things that I know build me up? And I love to learn, and so I'm always taking different community college classes or different things like that. And if I stop talking to my sister just because I'm dating someone, or if I stop taking those classes, I'm losing those really, really important, valuable parts of who I am and why he is falling in love with me in the first place. So love yourself, value yourself, the things you do, and make sure you keep doing those. It's vitally important for you and actually for the relationship.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I think this is so, so important. I think we've all had the experience, either ourselves or we've experienced it with a girlfriend, when they meet someone and suddenly, everything goes by the wayside. You never hear from this friend again, or you know, you don't hear from her for a long time.
Mm-hmm.
And it kind of feels like everything goes by the wayside and her whole world is suddenly rotating around this man. And I think we have to be really careful about not only what we give in terms of, you know, how soon we decide to become sexually involved or any of those things that are commonly talked about, but really how quickly we focus all of our time and attention and energy on someone. Sometimes it's mind-boggling how fast a woman will shift her focus from having this big, beautiful life just onto this one relationship in an unhealthy way. And it doesn't stay balanced.
Right. And I'm sure you do it too, Michelle. If you're starting to see that with someone, or, you know, I'll redirect the ship, right? It's like, wait, you know, you used to do this every week, and what's happening to that? And again, we have to remember that we do have brain chemistry stuff that is going on when we are first falling in love.
Mm-hmm.
And that brain chemistry does want us to be together more. That's normal. There's nothing wrong with that. And I often tell the women that I'm working with, it's like, of course you want to spend more time with him. Of course, of course that's, you want to not do some of the things that you used to do. That's all normal. And still do the things that you already were doing and that you already had planned. Yes, you want to be with him and still go and do those. You had a vacation plan with your girlfriends, go on that vacation. You do every Thursday night dance class, do the Thursday night dance class. Don't stop it. Whatever it is, do it, even though I know you don't want to. So.
Yeah, it's that balance. It's maintaining that balance.
Yeah. Absolutely.
So Deborah, besides these things, what else do you see come up with women in terms of relationships most frequently that you would share that might be important at this time?
You know, I think, Michelle, it fits with the whole theme of what we're talking about. I would just say, you know, you want to keep, you always want to keep growing as the person that you are. You know, I do an exercise with the people that I work with, which is really about getting in touch with their best self, right? And that best self is that part of us that's wise, that knows that there's an abundance of love in the world, that knows that they are absolutely, you know, beautiful and accepted just exactly as they are. And so you want to keep that in the forefront of your mind, and therefore keep your life, you know, and growth going on. So whatever are the ways that you do that, do it. You know, I shared that I love to take classes and learn stuff. That's part of what I do. You know, being with my friends, those kind of things. Just keep your own growth and your own movement forward. I just really think that's so important, even as you're starting to date someone or fall in love.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I agree. And I think that this brings up a thought for me, which is that I think in our industry and our work, so often there's so much emphasis on meeting the right guy, attracting the right partner, which is all fine and good. Mm-hmm. However, one thing I like to remind people of, and this goes along with what you were saying, not only do you want to be learning and growing, but you really want to be able to have a lot of joy and a lot of satisfaction and a lot of life built into what's going on the journey, so to speak. In other words, like your life, this is not a dress rehearsal. This is the real thing. Yeah. And the more you're growing and learning and expanding who you are, and the more richly and fully you're enjoying your life, I believe that's going to make a difference in the kind of person or persons, both men and women friends, and also potential partners that you're going to attract.
Yeah, absolutely, Michelle. I totally agree with that. I mean, that really is, all of everything I was talking about today, right, is really about yourself, right? And that's what becomes the most important thing. And that's at the core, though I help women who are in relationships, I help women who are wanting to be in relationships. At the core, I really work on them loving themselves and creating their own joy and personal happiness, because then and only then are you really going to be able to create that amazing relationship that you want to have with a significant other. You got to start there. That's like my rock. I've seen that and I believe it, and I know that is the truth.
Yeah. Yeah, well, we're definitely resonating today, Deborah, and this has been such a fun conversation, and I'm so glad that we've been able to have it. And I believe it'll be very valuable for so many women out there. And
starting from my bio on my 30th birthday being stood up, right? I had lots of drama in that relationship.
Yeah, since you brought that up again, you want to quickly tell us that story?
Yeah, sure. As it said, I was dating someone who had a drug addiction. He had been in rehab, supposedly. He wasn't. I got into that relationship, and I tolerated. He stole from me on more than one occasion once he started to get back into doing the drugs. And then he kept, of course, I had fallen in love, and obviously one of my deal breakers now is nobody that has any drugs.
Yeah.
Right.
Right.
We have to learn from those, right? And then he kept saying, "Oh, I'm going back to the meetings. It was just a slip up. I'm not going to do it." And I believed him. And then he slipped up again, and I believed him. And on my 30th birthday, he was supposed to take me out, and he never showed up. And I ended up chasing him down at a local bar, and so I comforted myself with Ben & Jerry's Cherry Garcia ice cream when I came home that night. But we have to learn from those processes. That's actually what was part of what put me on the path to go to school and to get my master's degree and to kind of figure this stuff out, get into my own therapy. So.
Yeah, it's interesting how these painful experiences can be a catalyst for our growth and can help us to move forward. And so one of the things that comes to mind there, well, two things come to mind. First of all, Ben & Jerry's have kept many a single woman company over the years. I know they did me, and I've still got Ben on one hip and Jerry on the other. The problem with those boys is they're hard to shake. So
yes,
that's the first thing. That's the first thing that comes to mind. And the second thing that comes to mind is that, and this might be a great place to wrap up, is just that if you have had some experiences from the past, or you can relate to any of these things that we've been talking to in terms of maybe mistakes, real or perceived mistakes you've made, a big dose of self-forgiveness is really in order here, because we are human, and our desires for that connection, like you were talking about earlier, Deborah, our desire for that connection, for that belonging, for mattering to someone, for that closeness and intimacy is a very strong drive for so many people, so many women specifically, since we're talking to women. And if you have fallen into any of these traps along the way, be gentle with yourself and be forgiving, but a new sense of awareness around them can be helpful. So I just think that's important to say too, because the last thing we want is for women to beat themselves up if they've gotten caught in any of these traps, right?
Self-acceptance and, knowing your humanness and, making those mistakes. And I often talk about it as this, it's one of the gifts, and I'm sure you get to do this with the women you work with as well, is that we get to we get to be a person in their present life that gets to hold that forgiveness, that full acceptance, unconditional love, grace. Those are kind of the words and language that I use, because
Mm.
it is true. We are all human. We have all, we've all been there, done that kind of stuff.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah, I swear I shot myself in the foot so many times, it's a wonder I can walk, So, but we take these lessons and we become stronger and we become wiser. And some lessons we learn the hard way, but still that big dose of self-forgiveness and showing grace and mercy for ourselves and our humanness is a big step in the right direction.
Yes, I so agree with you, Michelle. Yes.
So this has been great, Deborah. Thank you so much. And we're wishing you a wonderful day full of new possibilities. Bye-bye for now.